Hey y'all, how's it going? Welcome to Seed to Plate channel. My name is Brooke, and today we are going to talk about all the different ways that you can start your seeds at home. So if you've never been here before, like I said, my name is Brooke, and this is a channel where we talk about urban and suburban gardening and cooking and all things related to that. And so if you like this video, leave a like, please subscribe. There's always a really good conversation down in the comments of people who know way more than I do and always have good things to say about gardening. So I have a very weak cup of coffee because it's the very late afternoon, but I am exhausted. So let's get into this. Want to start this video out by saying you do not have to start your own seeds to be a gardener. If you want to go to the plant store and buy transplants, that does not make you any more or less of a gardener than anyone else. Just wanted to put that out there. I think there is kind of like this weird thing in the gardening community where it's like, oh, you have to start your seeds. It's like, no, you don't. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy. I'm not going to lie to you. It is not the easiest process in the world. However, I personally find it extremely rewarding to start my own seeds for a couple of reasons. Reason number one is I like to try out all the different varieties. I really enjoy the history of food and the culture behind food and like all food. And so to me, being able to, for example, this year, a variety of collard greens that I'm growing is specialized for the South and our temperatures. So I'm really excited to grow that variety because I've never grown that before. Same thing with all my heirloom tomatoes. I got to grow and eat all different types of tomatoes because I started them from seed. So that is a really big reason, just number one. Number two, I really like to have control over the whole process of growing my own food. So I like to know what kind of soil I'm using, what kind of fertilizers were used, what kind of seeds were used. Fun fact, they can't sell GMO seeds to home gardeners. So if you ever hear anybody saying that you can grow GMO at home, it's not a thing. So I like the varieties. I like knowing the whole step of the process from start to finish. And I personally get a lot of satisfaction out of starting my own seeds. It's just, to me, starting a tomato seed in January and then nurturing that for 6 months and then eating that tomato in June is like, I just really love that feeling. So those are all the reasons I like to start seeds. We'll get into all the different setups. And I am going to put prices in this video. I'm not going to say the prices because I need to recalculate them from when I actually bought this stuff because it's been a couple of years. So let's do this. So the cheapest way that you can start seeds at home is in a really well-lit window. I know this probably sounds really stupid, but I think a lot of people forget that window light is good light. So, as long as you've got seeds, which are anywhere from, they can be 99 cents a package to, $4 or $5 package, depending on if you're getting something like really rare and super fancy. Get some seeds, okay? And you use the sunlight. You have a really well lit window. Now your window will need to have at least 8 hours of sunlight so that your plants don't get leggy. And you're gonna hear me say that a lot, so I'll go ahead and tell you what it means. When a seedling gets leggy, that means the light source is too far away from the actual seed. So we'll talk about it when I talk about my other setups. You wanna make sure that light source right when the seed is germinating is nice and close. So if you don't get direct light through a window for 8 hours a day, you are going to have leggy seedlings and they're going to fail. Maybe there's some people who can prove me wrong and I would be happy to be proven wrong. I don't think gardening is like a one-size-fits-all approach, but just based on the science of it, you need at least 8 hours of direct sunlight on a seedling for it not to get leggy. But obviously very economical. Now, in terms of how to start your seeds, people do this in all different types of ways. I used red Solo cups this last year in part of my seed starting process. So red Solo cups are pretty cheap. So let's say in this like cheapest scenario, let's say you got $1 package of seeds, you used red Solo cups, and you used the direct lighting that you had. Your cost would come out to this, okay? This is what your cost would come out to. Now, that is a great option. And some of you might ask, well, Brooke, why don't I just put my seeds outside? Great question. Your spring and summer transplants are not going to do well in the winter weather when you need to start the seeds. Seeds need to be started 8 to 10 weeks, sometimes even 12 weeks, before you actually intend on planting them outside. And by doing this, you get started a lot earlier and you get fruit a lot earlier. If I were to put a seed in the ground for a tomato in Texas, Central Texas, I'm in Zone 8B, if I were to put that seed in the ground in March, I wouldn't have tomatoes until September. Whereas if I start them in January inside, I nurture them through the first 8 to 10 weeks, and then I put them outside, I have tomatoes in June. So going backwards, that cheapest scenario that I'm talking about is an ideal scenario. You usually cannot put stuff outside. In the case of like lettuces and dark leafy greens and brassicas and stuff like that, all the stuff that I'll be starting, I've heard, I haven't actually tried this, but I have heard it's too hot outside and these things will bolt, because a lot of the times, except for brassicas, with dark leafy greens, you are eating the leaves that photosynthesize. What will eventually happen when these plants get too hot is they'll send up a center stalk that has flowers and seeds, and that's how the plant's life cycle happens. You're just eating the plant partway through its life cycle. In regards to brassicas, you are actually eating the bud of the flower of where the seeds would form. So I think when you understand the part of the life cycle that you're actually eating the plant in, you can better understand why you can't do certain things with them. So I've always started my fall transplants inside in my house where I know what the temperature is going to be, and I'm not putting them through too much at the beginning. With that being said, you do have to go through a process of hardening off your plants. So for the last probably 2 weeks that they're inside before I actually put them outside, I will take them out for an hour or two every day and then slowly increase that time so that they actually get used to the temperature. And that's the process of hardening off. Okay, so that's why in this cheapest option, I wouldn't put my plants right outside. So if we go to kind of the next tier, okay, we're talking about maybe we're still using red Solo cups, we're still getting really cheap seeds, and but we need lighting. We need lighting. So I will find a picture somewhere of my first seed starting setup. I actually did this in the living room of my 1-bedroom apartment. And I didn't realize how many seeds I actually started, and so they just slowly took over my living room. But I actually went and got this. So this is a clamp light. They actually use these mostly for construction. You can get them at Home Depot, and then this is just a daylight light bulb. And the reason I liked these is because they have these clamps, and they're super strong. You can clamp this to anything. I think I had this clamped on blinds. I had it clamped on my my sliding glass door, my TV stand. And the reason that I really like these as opposed to another option is because the key to not getting your plants leggy is to start the seeds, is to having your artificial light source very close to where you're actually starting your seeds. So when I first start seeds, my light source is probably this far away from my seed starting tray and my seeds. So, and then you gradually move it up, once the plants start to emerge. So This was a really cheap option, and then it has a plug that you just put on an extension cord. I think I had 3 of these. And that was how I started all my seeds for 2 years. And that was a great option. So in this scenario, let's say you are going to use this situation. Let's say you need 3 lights. You're using red Solo cups and you're still getting super cheap seeds. This is how much it would cost you in this kind of like second tier scenario. Worked for me. I mean, I grew plenty of food with this situation. You don't have to have anything fancy to do this. You really don't. So I will. And then scenario number 3, kind of tier 3 if you want to, we'll go with that lingo, is actually what I have set up now. So what I have set up now is behind me. This is a wire rack from Amazon, just a wire rack. And what are above it are these LED daylight bulbs that you actually use. You buy them on Amazon, and they are really for like garages and stuff like that, but they work great for plants. That is what I use in terms of lighting now, and I can move the shelves up and down to get the light closer to my plants. And then in terms of seed starting trays, this is gross because it hasn't been washed, so don't judge me. But this is what I use. So this has 2 parts. You have the actual cells, and then you have this bottom tray that has no holes on the bottom. This tray does have holes. So the idea is that you're gonna bottom water. You're gonna fill this side up with water, and then the soil's gonna uptake the water through the soil and water the plant. This one still needs to be cleaned out from January. It's July. The other thing I have on this seed starting setup that I use now that is totally like not necessary at all, but I like the convenience of it, is a timed outlet. So I have this outlet that I can set the time, and it's got 2 different strips, one that's always on and then one that is timed. And so I like that for a very specific reason, and it mostly has to do with spring and summer seedlings. And that's because for some spring and summer seedlings, you need this. This is called a heat mat. Now, I didn't actually use heat mats when I was using the construction lights. I would actually just use a self-turning off heating pad, and I would wrap it in a blanket, and I would only use it in the morning when it was like a little bit chilly. So take this for what you will. These are heat mats, and also I'm sure the heating pad situation is definitely a fire hazard, so disclaimer, please don't do that, and if you do, please don't sue me. So these are heat mats. These are typically always on in my spring and summer transplant, so I like having this very specific outlet where one side of it is always on and one side of it is timed, because I like the fact that I can have those 2 options. So I will, the tier 3 setup is going to exist right here, and the startup cost is not cheap. Just full transparency, like, I didn't have the money to spend on that. I was actually gifted the money to spend on that from my boyfriend's parents. So Bonnie and Brian, don't know if you watch these, but thank you so much. So that is my current seed starting setup, and actually I'm helping with my community gardens fall plant sale, and I'm starting a bunch of plants. So I'm actually going to be having another one of these, but 2 tiers taller with all the lights soon, once I get around to clearing it off from where it's been living outside. You know, another project for another day. So those are kind of the 3 seed starting tiers that I personally have moved through, other than I've never really had a window with enough natural light to like go that route. Now, as you go up from there, obviously having a greenhouse would be cool. I was looking at some of those Amazon greenhouses that are like anywhere from 60 to $100, where it's basically just like a big plastic thing. I wasn't super excited about those. They seemed kind of flimsy. sometimes we get bad windstorms here, and I just wasn't really willing to take that chance when I know that I have a surefire bet here. But like an actual greenhouse would be a great option. If you have a greenhouse, more power to you. If you're watching this video, you probably don't have a greenhouse. But you know, maybe I'll have a greenhouse someday. That would be really cool. But for now, this works great. In terms of increase in electricity cost, you're gonna see a little bit of an uptick for sure. I think when I was starting my spring and summer seedlings, our electricity bill went from about $100 a month, which, mind you, we both work from home full time. And so it went from about $100 a month to about $130-ish a month. The LED lights are super efficient, but it's more lights that are on for anywhere from 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day, depending on where your seedlings are at. So, you know, you kind of have to factor that cost in as well, when you're kind of talking about money and how much these things cost, and just know and understand that that's going to be a part of the costs. Whoever said growing your own food is cheaper, that we need to not say that anymore, because it's definitely not. Between when you start to really add up all the costs between like supplies, setup, electricity, water, all of this stuff, you know, I think it actually helps you have a very deep respect for food and growing food. So, small rant aside, those are, in my view, about the 4 tiers of seed starting that, you know, an urban suburban gardener could potentially have. We are actually like right in the prime time of starting seeds for fall, and sometimes I just like get myself all upside down about it, when in reality I just literally need to sit down and like pick one, and then I'll get all excited and keep doing it. Oh, a cost I forgot to talk about this whole time is the soil that you're gonna use. I will factor the soil into all of these things. You can use really whatever. I don't love seed starting mix. I think it just really lacks a lot of nutrients that you need. So I would go with like a potting soil. I prefer an organic potting soil. I'm going to be using Fox Farm Ocean Forest, I think it's called. That's what I'll be using to start my seeds this time around. I did use Fox Farm Seed Starter Mix in the spring, and it just didn't hold any water. Like, the amount of water that would just run through the soil was honestly like a huge bummer. So soil has to be factored into all of these costs as well. Alright guys, I hope you liked this video. Like I said, if you would like to follow along with the journey, please subscribe. We're forming a really great community here of urban and suburban gardeners who just love to talk to each other. It's awesome. And no matter if you start seeds, buy transplants, whatever you choose to do, it's all valid. You are always a gardener, and you are always welcome here. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next time.